Welcome back, tributes, to episode 71 of Into the Arena. I'm Holly,
I'm Emily.
and we are back for the 71st episode with some announcements. Join us for Tribute Talk every Thursday, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. You know, we're ramping up for ballads, so every week it's just chaos. I mean, the last few weeks we've been like talking for hours or like having a list of things we have to get through. So definitely something if you're into ballad and movie news, and then text the US number. This also works on WhatsApp, +1 717-844-6559 to sign up to receive texts from the Academy. Kind of quiet right now. We're waiting for our Academy texts, but sign up for those. And then turn on your notifications for YouTube and Instagram because ever since the trailers come out, we have just been hopping on lives. So join us for that. And those are our announcements for today. But before we dive into kind of talk about Lucy Gray and Katniss, I thought it would be kind of fun. I sprung this on Emily like right before we started the episode. And I was like, let's add something to this episode. And I think what I want to do is a who said it, Katniss or Lucy Gray, to maybe see how similar or how different they sound. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh. We'll see
So
if I can do this. I'm a little scared.
we will see. So the first quote is, "Thank you. We don't have much cause to look nice in District 12. Katniss or Lucy Gray?"
Oh no. Well, that would be true of both characters.
Mhm.
Honestly, I feel like this could be either,
They both said it. No,
but
I'm kidding.
they could have both said it. I I'm leaning towards Katniss though, because Lucy Gray does try to make herself like look a little bit better. Like I'm thinking about her reaping outfit, the rainbow dress.
Mhm. Yeah.
So maybe Katniss?
You're right. Oh my God, you got it. Okay, I'm glad these aren't like throwaways though, right? Like this
No,
isn't
that took some thinking.
okay. Okay. The next one is, "Nothing since the reaping has seemed very real.
Holly,
Katniss or
what are
Lucy
these
Gray?"
quotes?
I did some sleuthing.
Wait, say it again.
"Nothing since the reaping has seemed very real." I'm so glad that this is
Uh,
working.
I don't remember this quote, but I feel like that's a quote both of them could say or think. I want to say Cat. Is it Lucy Gray?
Yes. You're getting them. You're doing really well. I'm
This
really
is so
proud of
stressful.
Okay, the next one. "A mockingbird is just a songbird. Katniss or Lucy Gray?"
I feel like that's Katniss.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You're
That
three
one I
for
was more
three.
sure of.
You're 3 for 3.
No bird is just a bird to
That's
Lucy
very
Gray.
true.
Yeah, I don't think she would say it's just a songbird.
Team Songbird or Team Snake? You
Oh my gosh.
decide.
Team Snake.
Team Songbird. And then last one. "I'll tell you more when my skin stops crawling."
That's
Are you
Katniss, right?
sure?
What? What?
Are you positive?
Think that I actually remember this quote and that it's something that Katniss
Yes.
says to Peeta,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? Okay.
You
Oh,
got all of them. So like I made this. I'm glad that you got all of them, but I'm glad it wasn't easy because we would have thrown it out. But like I feel like this is me like a teacher moment. These quotes emphasize how similar Katniss and Lucy Gray are. And we're talking about the quote by Francis Lawrence that Lucy Gray is the anti-Katniss, which Emily will start, I guess, lead us into the episode.
So, in an article with Empire Magazine, I believe it was, they kind of used that clickbait title from Francis's soundbite in this interview that Lucy Gray is the anti-Katniss. He said Katniss was an introvert and a survivor. She was quiet and stoic. You could almost say she was asexual. Lucy Gray is the opposite. She wears her sexuality on her sleeve and she's really a performer. Lucy Gray loves crowds. She knows how to play crowds and manipulate people.
I mean, I think everyone was pretty shocked when this article came out because of the clickbait title and because, like, I think some of the words that were popping out was like sexuality, wearing her heart on her sleeve, entertaining, knowing how to manipulate. And I think that was something that a lot of fans were a little bit confused about because they're very, very strong words for Lucy Gray.
Yeah, I think it's just we were all kind of wondering why they were focusing on sexuality as the comparison versus personality or even
Hmm.
their similarities, or even just the fact that she's a performer and Katniss is not really. I'd be so interested to read this entire interview with him. I guess the reason that this interview was so short is because they kind of have to chop up their interview with like Francis and Nina into multiple articles because they don't have the actors' interviews to
Hmm.
pull from. But yeah, it's interesting that they pulled out Anti-Katniss, but it's we don't know exactly what the quote was from Francis Lawrence that included that.
I think it's just interesting though, like you said, because it's so strong of a term, the anti-Katniss.
Even if you don't mean it that way,
Mhm,
saying anti anything, it has a negative connotation to
mhm,
it. When you read that, it sounds negative when you say anti. So saying the anti Katniss, I don't know. I don't even like seeing that phrase,
mhm,
anti
yeah.
Katniss, because it makes it seem like if someone were to say that they were anti Katniss,
Mhm.
it would mean that they didn't like Katniss.
Who are against Katniss, which is interesting because then as an audience member who hasn't read the books, and we know that it's about President Snow, and then we have an anti-Katniss, in quotes, anti-Katniss, it would kinda make
Mhm.
you seem like they're both from this evil side, if that makes sense. I don't know, I think it's kind of confusing to have that being said about a
Yeah.
character.
It's definitely a good clickbait title, but I don't know if
Mhm.
it's a good marketing the film
No.
title because people love Katniss.
Mhm.
And I feel like it just also kind of feeds into this Rachel Zegler hate that's
Mhm.
going on. So I don't like it. Good for Empire's clicks, I guess, but
Yeah.
not for movie promotion.
I guess kind of in our realm, I know we talk about our background in reading Ballad for the first time, and we all know I wasn't quite a fan, and you weren't like it wasn't your favorite of the books. But I guess one thing is, how did we first react to learning that we would follow another District 12 female tribute in Ballad? Like, I remember being kind of a little bit upset about that because it was a little bit too much on the nose for me. And so I can imagine, like you said, a lot of people teaming up on this hate culture that we have and not liking the movie because of that shock value.
Mhm.
Like reading The Reaping, I was like, what is going on? I was so upset with it because her reaping
Mhm.
is so different from Katniss's.
Yeah, and I mean, when I heard that it was gonna be focused on the District 12 girl tribute again, I was like, "Really?
Mhm.
Really, Suzanne?" And I felt like that until a certain point into the book. And so I think that seeing Anti-Katniss and learning that there's another female District 12 tribute could be off-putting for audiences who haven't read the books or haven't read the new book. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you get to the reaping, and I feel like it's still a little bit like, what?
Yeah. Which I think I like how they're connecting the hanging tree so early on with marketing is because it's like a good relationship that people like it's a cool connection that the two stories have. And so I think because Ballad is so musical, having that kind of be the introductory piece is a really good first move. I think I was
Mhm.
upset with it at first, but I understand why they are focusing on that now.
Yeah, people love the hanging tree. I feel
Mhm.
like it's the
The Rebel
most
remix.
I even like the Rebel remix.
Oh my
Like
god.
I'll take the radio edit. It's fine. It's grown on me.
Yeah.
Just like Meltdown. Yeah, I think going with the hanging tree is like a really smart move and connecting the two of them and their rebelliousness. You know what? It's so funny. I was looking up different references of singing in the book, and there's a line that Katniss says um about how she would absolutely like never sing for the Capitol. It's when she's trying to figure out what her talent
Mm.
is in catching fire. She's like, I don't really have any talents unless you count hunting, I think, or singing, but like I would never sing for the Capitol, which
Mm.
I think is interesting because that's in direct opposite of Lucy Gray. Although Lucy Gray is hesitant to sing for the Capitol also,
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah.
She really is singing at the reaping for herself. She wants to be the show. She wants to like go out with a bang before she
Mhm.
heads to the arena. And then when Snow wants her to sing in front of the Capitol, she's like, well, why would I do that? Like, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
So they both don't want to sing for the Capitol, is what I'm trying to
Unless there
say, I
were,
guess.
yeah, which is weird because why didn't she do singing as her like post Victor talent instead of fashion?
I think it's because singing is so personal to her. She doesn't want to share anything real of herself with the Capitol. But you know what? Is that Lucy Gray also?
Yeah.
Like, does she not want to share her real self? She just puts on a
Because
performer front.
why did she go back to District 12 when she could have stayed and performed in the Capitol? Pluribus says like he has a place for her to perform and he would love for her to perform there.
But she hates the Capitol.
Yeah.
So I don't think she would have wanted to do that either.
So
So
maybe behind
they
the
are
scenes,
similar in that way.
yeah, maybe behind the scenes they offered her that and they said no, or she said no. Snow finds out about that later, and then he makes it like so that you can't say no unless somebody close to you dies, which is what I hate because Lucy Gray, oh my God, Lucy Gray came up with the whole idea of hurting someone close to you because it was when the tributes were like, oh, we could totally kill Snow when he approaches them. And she's like, well, you have people back home that they could take this out on. And she said that in front of him. And I was like, Lucy Gray, like some of these things, I'm like, Lucy Gray, if you had
She
not
didn't
said
know.
this,
She didn't know.
I know. Same with just like, I laugh and think to myself how kind of funny it is, like a baller move that Corio ended up getting the Plinths as like his adopted family after.
I hate that. I hope that's a real gut punch in the
Hmm.
movie because it's a real gut punch when you're reading the book. And
Yeah.
it just made me sick. So I looked up singing in the trilogy, but I also looked up rainbows, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but
Hmm.
Katniss doesn't like rainbows. So I feel like she's a little bit anti Lucy Gray.
Okay, we'll end it on that note. Katniss is the anti Lucy Gray.
It's the scene when she's talking to Rue and
Hmm.
she asks Rue what she loves most more than anything, and Rue says music, but I think she says music is like as frivolous as hair ribbons
Oh
and
yeah.
rainbows or something like that,
Hmm.
which I'm like, I don't know, it's interesting. Like rainbow doesn't come up very often in the trilogy, but
Hmm.
it usually comes up in relation to the Capitol. The Capitol being a
Mm.
rainbow. A rainbow is like excess. It's like something that's not useful to Katniss. So I think it's just interesting that then Suzanne chooses a rainbow to kind of symbolize Lucy Gray in the prequel.
Yeah, because even in the prequel, Corio is like, what is she wearing? He's like weirded out by Lucy Gray's rainbow dress at first. And so maybe Lucy Gray had the influence on the Capitol. Like I could see Tigress taking that and like other stylists taking that art and going from there. Very interesting. That's really cool.
And another point where rainbows are mentioned is with PETA when he is
Hmm.
talking to the Morphling, I think, who's
Oh.
dying in the arena. And
Hmm.
he said, but I haven't figured out a rainbow yet. They come so quickly and leave so soon. And I'm like, wait, Lucy Gray is like a rainbow. She comes so quickly and then she leaves so soon. I don't
That
know.
right there. No,
Is that
I
something? Is that
love
nothing?
that's something right there. That
I
is
feel
like,
like that is kind of like that's how Suzanne thinks about a rainbow, and so
mhm.
that's how she chose to symbolize Lucy Gray, who just like disappears.
I kind of think that I'm more on team Lucy Gray is alive question mark. Ever since Dr. Paradis said that he thought that Lucy Gray was alive, I've kind of questioned every single thought I've had. So,
I was so sure that she didn't make it, like that she was dead, until we read that interview from Suzanne that's apparently been out since the book came out, but saying that she wanted to leave it open in case she wanted to, revisit it. And I'm like,
mhm,
okay. I mean, I guess what I always thought is that Suzanne has not decided herself whether
yeah.
Lucy Gray is alive or dead. And I think she, like a lot of authors, just has left that open for herself. Like she doesn't even want to decide that until she knows if
Mhm.
she needs to decide that. But
Kind
I
of
think it's
awesome.
possible that she's still alive and we could see her reference to again.
But I think that quote is just everything to me. I love that line.
And it's PETA talking about a rainbow too, which I
So
don't
it's
know.
like
PETA
super
and
cute.
Lucy Gray, I think, would be friends.
Oh, they would be, she would be the one in District 13 taking care of him, like actually taking care of him. Best friend goals.
Well, she does. She's Gracie Say, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I think a fun question to ask is kind of the legacy that Lucy Gray leaves for Katniss. Like how, besides the hanging tree, did Lucy Gray influence Katniss's story, or did she have any influence? Because a lot of people liked the story of Katniss being plucked from the masses.
I mean, she definitely brings entertainment to the games, which I know is kind of a more removed influence
Mhm,
on Katniss because Katniss ends up having to perform in
mhm.
ways that are established by Lucy Gray.
Even more than just entertainment, the like entertainment of your personality and creating that appearance of how you want to appeal to audiences and what kind of tribute you want to be.
She almost has to be kind of perceived like Lucy Gray. Katniss does. I feel like her
Hmm.
outward
Yeah,
persona,
that's
she kind
very
of has to be
true.
like Lucy Gray on the outside, but she isn't really like that.
No, that's a good point. I wonder if that's just because we have our extrovert and our introvert, but I think do we actually really know Lucy Gray then if she's just giving off this? Because when I think of Katniss as a tribute, as a capital citizen watching, I think of her as like this giddy schoolgirl. And I guess I can kind of see that in some parts of Lucy Gray. So, what parts of Lucy Gray were real to us? Do we ever get to see that real character? It kind of upsets me. Kind of
Yeah,
upsets me.
no, I mean, I still feel like I struggle with understanding who Lucy Gray is, way more so than Katniss. And maybe that's because we're in her head, right, in the books, whereas Lucy Gray, we never are. Snow, we know that he's two-faced one way on the inside in his thoughts versus what he actually says in dialogue, but we don't really
Mhm.
know that about Lucy Gray. She seems to be like this really optimistic person, but at the same time, I feel like she is very good at manipulation. She's always performing. So, is that really who she is? I'm just really hoping for the movie to help me flesh out and understand who Lucy Gray is better, honestly.
I think one thing we already know about them that they have in common is their self-preservation because Katniss is doing everything for Prim, but in the games, like there isn't that focus as much on Prim in these action shots where it's life or death. Like she's self-preservation because she's a tribute. Same with Lucy Gray the whole time, even after she wins the games, which is similar as Katniss, is self-preservation. And so I think that is kind of like that legacy that she leaves from her from entertainment is that needing to put on that face and survive.
I feel like they also both go out of their way to help people. They're both very protective of their family, first of
Yes.
all. Like, that's the most important thing to them, which I don't know. Interesting question. Do you think that Lucy Gray would, if volunteering was something that was allowed,
Mm,
would Lucy Gray have volunteered for Maud Ivory if her name had been picked?
that's a good question.
Because we know like
Hmm.
volunteering should be like a rare thing. I mean, when
Yeah.
Katniss volunteered for Prim, that was like a big deal. Nobody had ever done that before in District 12.
Yeah.
You ask fans, oh, would you volunteer for your sibling or whatever? Pretty much everybody says they would, which I find funny. I don't really know if I believe that. But I don't know. Would Lucy Gray volunteer for one of the Covey?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But the hard part is like
We don't see a lot of them interacting.
we don't see Lucy Gray for who she is. So I think that's a really interesting question, Emily. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, I want to know what people think. Would Lucy Gray volunteer for Maud Ivory?
And I agree with you because so many people do that where it's like, yes, I would volunteer.
But
But like
would you?
we live in a different society. Like that's not the world we live in right now. Like you don't actually know what you would really do.
But it does seem like they're both very protective of their group, you know,
Mhm.
of their family. Like the Covey is very important to Lucy Gray and a big part of her identity, both in like
Yeah.
her work that she does and as like a family unit.
Would you consider the Covey more a geographic sense of family, like a descending from? Because the way I think about it is there's capital and there's districts. And Katniss never really like how big of being a district person is her identity. It is her whole identity, but at the same time, it's not something she ever really talks about. Whereas Lucy Gray always talks about, oh, I'm
Hmm.
not district, I'm not capital, I'm Covey.
Yeah, I feel like Katniss always refers to the scene as just like her unfortunate circumstance,
That's true, yeah.
kind of. And also, I feel like she's a little bit set apart from the seam or like sees herself that way because
Hmm.
she is self-sufficient and functions differently than the rest of the seam.
And I think what I like in the end about how different they are is that it's because they're meant to be individuals, and just because they're both victors from District 12. I think the only part that rubs me the wrong way is the connection to Snow, is everyone's connections to Snow. And I know that that's a big conflict that a lot of fans talk about, is that concern with viewing Snow's reaction to Katniss's moves based on his past relationship with Lucy Gray. And so I think that's a big problem that a lot of people have, is it's just too niche. Like it's just too niche that these two girls from the seam are picked to go to the games and they both have this close connection to Snow.
I feel like it explains a lot about Snow, which I like. It explains his obsession with her and why he's paying so much attention to her, and maybe even why
Mhm.
he doesn't just kill her, right? Like, I
True.
feel like it would
Yeah.
be so easy to have just killed her right after the games instead of being intrigued by her and like seeing if he can get her to work with him and like control
Mhm.
her. I don't know. I just feel like it makes so much sense. And it makes me like the character of Snow in the trilogy as a villain even more. I don't think it negates any of the choices that Katniss makes or anything that she does, which is why we love her because she doesn't know anything about Lucy Gray. Like none of her story or her actions are influenced or changed by the fact that Lucy Gray existed in the past. It's all just related to Snow.
That should be the Instagram reel that you make out of this episode, because I think you so perfectly capture why this connection between the two is okay to have. I think like you honestly changed my perception and feelings about it just by what you said, because so many people have this problem that, oh, everything that Katniss does is pretty much all taken away by Lucy Gray. But like you said, she has no recollection. She has no idea who Lucy Gray is. And so I think that's a really, really important point to focus on, that they're so different, but they're also very similar, but
Mhm.
also they're individuals.
I mean, I guess the one connection, it's the hanging tree, but we love the hanging tree, and I feel
Mhm,
like readers' favorite thing about
mhm.
Ballad was learning more about this weird song. Like, where did it come from? What does it mean? That's the biggest connection between the two of them, and it's something that people actually liked.
And
So,
what I love about the hanging tree is how it represents how history has used music to make
mhm.
change. Like, we've
I
talked
I
about this
love that every
before.
time you bring that up.
Yeah, like, and it's a generational thing. Like, it's so amazing that we see it pass through Lucy Gray to Katniss.
That's something she started
Mhm,
so long ago, like, finally it has built up to this point where it could have such a huge impact, which
mhm.
I think Lucy Gray would love.
So really, I guess the question is Lucy Gray the anti-Katniss?
I hate that word "anti."
Is she the opposite Katniss? Is she everything that Katniss isn't?
They're so similar in some ways, but they're still so different. They're so different in personality, but they have a lot of similarities too, and I mean, it makes sense that they have a lot of similarities because they're essentially family. Not to say that they're like blood related necessarily, but if Maud Ivory is related to Katniss and Maud Ivory and Lucy Gray were essentially family, like it makes so much sense that things were passed down. So they would have a lot of similarities.
I feel like I agree with everything you say, but when I asked the part like, is Katniss everything that Lucy Gray isn't? I feel like that kind of answers it because yeah, Katniss is everything that Lucy Gray isn't, and Lucy Gray is everything that Katniss isn't. But they both also have similar ways in which they go about things. Like they know when to show their emotions and they know when and how to manipulate people. Because I think Lucy Gray is more mature in that aspect of knowing how to manipulate people. But by the end of Mockingjay, Katniss knows how to manipulate people
Mhm.
just as well.
I feel like she becomes more Lucy Gray like.
Yeah, it's almost like Lucy Gray is that model, which is why she would be a perfect greasy say for our Katniss. Anything else about Lucy Gray and Katniss? I feel like I just want to wrap up by saying they're both amazing and they both have a piece in my heart forever. There's no choice between the two girls, but maybe there is. It depends on the day.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned that there are more pieces of my personality that I can relate to Lucy Gray as time
Mhm.
has gone on. I just explain it like she's a theater girl and like I'm a theater girl, so I get it now.
It all makes sense now. I love that. I feel like it made sense for us to cover this post-interview, and I was telling Emily, like, we're about to enter a new era, so we have episodes coming out every Sunday this month, so stay tuned for that every week, new episodes, and I kind of feel like we're wrapping up this era of our pre-ballad life. Come November, it's ballad season. I cannot like, can we just take a second to realize that it's October of 2023? Like, do we
Oh my
remember when
gosh.
casting announcements were coming out? Like when the movie announcement came out? It's been years pre-ballad. Let's just enjoy this. And it made sense to kind of do a final episode before we get to know movie Lucy Gray, and then we can compare. We will see you next time. Bye.